Hi folks, in this video we're going to be having a look at applying your first water slide decal transfer. This is going to be applied onto a flat surface like the majority of decals and transfers you'll apply to models, so there's no fancy tools or chemicals required here. So without any further ado, let's cue the music. The first thing that we want to do is identify which transfer we want to apply and whereabouts on the model we want to apply it. Once you are happy the transfer will fit in the location, with a hobby knife or some scissors, cut around the transfer on the sheet. You don't need to cut out the exact design, as a film actually extends beyond the design and you want some extra backing sheet to be able to hold on with some tweezers or other implements. Next, I'm going to place the transfer onto a piece of folding kitchen paper. This is my personal preference as it soaks up any excess water and prevents the transfer from being lost off onto your cutting mat or from it folding. This often happens if it's left suspended in water. Using a clean brush, I'm going to apply a dollop of water onto the transfer, making sure the entire transfer area is covered. I'm also going to wet the area of the model that the transfer is going to be applied to. Keeping the model area and the transfer itself wet will allow you to continue to manipulate and position the transfer long after you've applied the transfer onto the model. Gently, with a wet brush, test the transfer. If it's still solid on the backing paper after a minute or so, you might want to add a bit more water onto the transfer. Once it starts to easily move around on the backing paper, it can then be applied to the model. You may need to re-wet the model if it's dried out in the time it's taken for the transfer to come loose. With the transfer moving easily around on the backing paper, with a wet brush you can remove it from the paper and position it into the rough area that you'd like onto the model. Now, using a wet brush you can do some more accurate positioning, and if you're really struggling with a wet brush you can use a sharp implement such as a toothpick or the back end of a hobby knife to get that exact positioning that you'd like to do. Be very careful if you use the hobby knife, as it can cause undesirable rips and tears within the transfer, but they're usually pretty hardy. To ensure that the transfer stays nicely in place, I'm coming in with the clean corner of the kitchen towel and wicking away any excess water. Be careful when doing this, as you can lead to some movement of the transfer. If you're not very confident with this, you can just leave it for plenty of time to make sure that it dries nicely into position. The last thing to do once your transfer is fully dried in place is to take away any shine or silvering that may happen from the film of the transfer. And to do this, all you need to do is to take some matte medium and have it on a slightly damp brush and loosely brush over the area of the transfer. It shouldn't be enough to reactivate the transfer, and once it's dried it should take away most, if not all, of any silvering or reflectiveness and make it look a seamless part of the paint job. And once that's dried, this transfer application is now complete. If you haven't applied any transfers before, I hope you found that useful. And if you did find it useful, why not consider subscribing? It's free of charge, it helps me out, and if you hit the notification bell, you get future updates in your YouTube feed on further videos just like this one. So, until next time folks.